Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders in rolling out 5G strategies and technologies. With me on today's show are Frank Konechny, Chief Technology Officer, U.S. Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Newell, Director of SoCal Tech Bridge, Naval X, Department of the Navy, Robert Costello, Executive Director, Enterprise Networks and Technology Support Directorate at U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Sam Navarro, Director, Customer Engagement Division, Information Technology Category at GSA, Morgan Kirk, Chief Technology Officer at Commscope, Randall Eastman, Department of Defense, Public Sector Verizon, and Stephen Douglas, Head of 5G Strategy at Spirent Technologies. Well, this certainly is a promising technology to enable the warfighter, to enable the frontline officers, quite frankly, to enable all the departments and agencies and every citizen across this country. So let's get right into it. Frank, can you give us a state of where the Air Force is with 5G?
Well, we have several initiatives going on right now. Let's take the first one. The first one is how we're going to bring LTE 5G to all the bases in the Air Force. We've already started by clumping the bases together into various regions. We have the Southeast already awarded. There's 10 bases in the Southeast, and we did this in a way so that the return on investment for the vendor would be very good. It's a 25-year lease, so something that we don't normally have. Normally it's 5 years. And we're grouping together bases with low density as well as bases with high density. That gives them a better viewpoint of how they can get a return on investment. So we've done this for the 10 bases in the Southeast. We're trying to do 20 bases in the Northwest, except COVID is preventing us from actually doing this because you can't do base visits until we actually release that. So until that happens, we're going to do that. And then we're supposed to do Hawaii and Alaska directly at the same time. And then we'll do the rest of the United States. But that's just, the tip of the iceberg. We're doing various experiments with OSD. First one is Hill Air Force Base, shared spectrum. Now I've heard in the news, everybody wants to use the spectrum, especially the 3 gigahertz range. That is somewhere where also we have various airplane radars actually working. And so we're trying to figure out a best way to actually do this, how can we actually share the spectrum instead of just licensing it off. And same with the mid-range analysis that was being done for some of the other airplanes. We're actually doing this, part of it at Hill, to actually look at how can we actually effectively do this. Also, we just been awarded another one for Tinker to do the same thing, except it's going to be a different spectrum. It's going to be more commercial oriented. How can we share with commercial exactly what we want to do? Now, that's interesting, but we also have another one that's Nellis, which is very interesting. If you know, the Air Operations Command is basically a set of systems that they do the air operation orders from. All right. What they want to be able to do now is to look at it in the viewpoint of how can I make this mobile? How can I segment it out, add new user interfaces to it, and actually segment it out across a range, across various areas. So a moving target is hard to hit, but a stationary one is very easy. So how can you do this with 5G? 5G meaning, network slicing, as well as probably some sat links, as well as some other things, some new technologies, as well as change the user interface into something that we've always seen in the movies, virtual, and also, visuals, as well as motions, as well as voice. So that's going to be an interesting little concept that they're actually going to produce out. And then,
I'm blown away by so much technology, so much 5G technology that's been rolled out across the Air Force, and this constellation of sort of technologies that come together to make 5G. It's really impressive.
Well, we're trying hard, and it's going to be a couple of years before we get there. But it's the plan. Also, we're doing some things at Hickam for aircraft maintenance, predictive analysis, getting the logistics. There, get the parts to the aircraft maintenance people, as well as do AR, VR capabilities. And lastly, we're doing some open RAN experiments out of San Antonio. So it's been very busy, and telemedicine also with the Army. But
wow, and it's just a great example of how this technology enables so many things to happen. Let's jump over to Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Newell. First of all, tell us what is Tech Bridge Naval X? What is that? What do you all do there? And then, of course, tell us how you all are enabling 5G technology in the Navy.
Thanks. I'm the director of the SoCal Tech Bridge, which is under Naval X. Naval X is the innovation arm of the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, and Acquisitions, Hondo Gertz. And so our job is to be the super connector to create non-traditional partnerships that unlock the future of emerging technology. And we're very excited about what we're doing in 5G. You know, just 3 weeks ago, we turned on the first 5G network on a military installation here at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, near San Diego, California. 5G Living Lab is really built upon a foundation of 4G LTE macros, which we all are used to in our coverage. But now we've installed the first 5G small cells on an installation. And so as you see small cell coverage with their high bandwidth, low latency capability on top of the typical 4G LTE coverage, we're prepared to do a number of pilots this year in 4 different categories, from energy communications to connected vehicles to drones, and what we call the digital fortress, which is our vision of the future of protection of a base that complements the physical fortresses we've built today. And so we're very excited about what we've built with Verizon through a collaborative research and development agreement. It's a 4-year agreement that facilitates the piloting, the prototyping, and the requirements development we need. And really what it does is it improves our position of knowledge, both from the technology and the concept of employment of how we leverage 5G. What we know is that 5G is not about my cell phone working better off hours. It's really about an unlock to many, many markets. And so we picked those 4 areas of capability to really explore and understand how it's transforming those markets.
Fantastic. It's really, you know, an accelerated movement of sort of out of the petri dish, out of the lab, into, you know, a prototype into the operator's hands. It sounds super exciting and a lot of different capabilities there. Robert, how about over at CBP? You guys have a unique situation. You're in all of the major sort of Super Bowl cities, if you will, major cities across the country, but then you're all across the borders, CONUS and OCONUS. So you've got some real massive requirements there.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. It's definitely been a challenge, and we've definitely adjusted this year as COVID-19 has changed our operations a little bit. So we do have a lot of 5G initiatives going on. Some of them will be the traditional on the belt as we look to expand our mobile capabilities across the board for our operators. Some of it is on autonomous surveillance. We're doing some really great work down on the southern border with the Commissioner's Innovation Team with autonomous surveillance towers. And we really see that 5G is going to allow us to have some great capabilities to bring that data back in, low latency, and do some processing on the edge. Some of our other initiatives revolve around Wi-Fi 6 as well, which is a complementary technology to 5G. So I really view 5G as the outside, Wi-Fi 6 on the inside. So we really want to have this seamless operation as our operators move from the field into a vehicle, into a facility, and back out. And I absolutely think that 4G is still a complementary and technology that will be with us for a long time. So we're doing a lot of work in the 4G area as well, installing backup capabilities at our fixed sites. And that's been an amazing capability that we've rolled out to well over 200 critical CBP sites, that when their terrestrial lines are cut, they can still operate, which is absolutely critical. We're doing a lot of work on in-vehicle or in-truck capabilities on our mobile surveillance platforms, our mobile processing platforms, our border patrol and field operations vehicles. And then we're doing some work on our LMR network. How can we integrate these technologies across the board? And I think 5G will play a role in that as well. The other thing that we're doing really well is planning on IoT. We really see that IoT is going to explode as 5G rolls out, and we absolutely have to have a good security in place on our IoT solutions as we roll them out. So we're doing a lot on cloud migration, which does play a role in 5G. Doesn't make a lot of sense to do 5G and then backhaul it all back to a traditional data center. So we're looking at options for how we can spread out our applications, how we can migrate to the cloud faster, and data. Yeah, you know, it's all in access to data from the operators. So we're doing a lot of work on data management, data access, modern databases, and solutioning around that to deliver all this data across the 5G networks back to the operators. So I think we have a lot of things in the hopper, so to say. And I think really 21 is when we're going to really see a lot of movement at CBP in 5G and Wi-Fi 6.
Sounds like it. And there's a lot of connectivity right from that officer all the way back into all the various devices. Super mobile workforce you have there that has to be super connected at all times, including the redundancy that you described. Sam, how about over at GSA? I'm so happy that you all are on this show. It's so important that we enable this capability across all the departments and agencies, and GSA is a big part of making that happen.
Right, and just like 5G is an enabler of cross-cutting use cases across the spectrum, same thing as the Federal Acquisition Service, we're an enabler to access the technology across government. And so what we've been seeing is that progress in 5G means different things to our different customers, right? CBP just illustrated what progress means for them. The Air Force and Marine Corps just illustrated what it means for them. So our 5G for government strategy is best visualized as a wheel comprised of 6 concepts. And we start from the technology, we continue on to the standards, security, policy, use case, and final part of that concept is the acquisition. And we're looking to close the gaps for government adoption and come full circle to the acquisition by understanding where the gaps are for our agency partners, meeting those gaps, and then ensuring the right offerings are there to provide the service for their use cases. And so we've been connected to the national strategy to secure 5G with the NSC efforts to implement government-wide acquisition plans for adoption of 5G, which ensures facilitating domestic 5G rollout, asset risk, and identifying core security principles of 5G infrastructure, address risk to the United States economic and national security, promote responsible and global development of 5G development across government. And so we've been working with entities such as not only the NSC, but the Federal Mobility Group, which has 42 agencies today participating. Frank helped us with the first 5G working group actually back last year to start talking about what are the challenges that we're seeing across the board? How can we expedite adoption so that we can increase efficiencies across the government here in the short term, and then looking in the long term, how can we enable those more modern use cases which will require other emerging technology concepts embedded into the network than just a faster, quicker latency and a more robust network.
Much more significant than those things you're describing there, which is so important. And you make some very good points that it's just not about speeds and feeds, right? It's about the whole ecosystem, including some of the security around it and how it does secure the environment. Really glad to see GSA taking on that. And thank you, Frank, for leading the charge there. I know that's tough to bring all those folks together and really focus on this activity. All right, Morgan, how about over at Commscope? First of all, tell us what Commscope is, and then tell us what you all are doing, what you're seeing in regards to 5G across the federal service.
Absolutely. Well, Commscope is a radio network equipment supplier. We are one of the few, if only in the United States, that are truly a system original equipment manufacturer. We've historically played in spaces in the physical layer, so supplying the cabling, the antennas, and these sorts of things for networks. But in more recent times, the past 10 years, we've moved into other spaces. We're actually doing the radio equipment itself. So we develop and design base stations and whole networks from the remote unit to the distributed unit to the central unit for 4G and 5G networks. And we also work really in the indoor space, probably as our dominant position, and that's providing in-building coverage, whether it's in the form of small cells or in the form of DAS equipment, which is distributed antenna equipment. And what we do for the federal government is a variety of things. We're an equipment supplier, not just on the 5G side of the world, but on 4G side of the world, but also in the Wi-Fi space. We mentioned earlier, Wi-Fi 6, very interesting. Wi-Fi 6E, again, very interesting. We have product portfolios for these areas as well. What we try to do is provide ubiquitous coverage to whatever facilities or campuses we are asked to to serve, and allow effectively any device to connect anywhere, anytime in the most efficient method that it can. So if that means bringing in commercial service for various purposes, commercial services brought in. If that means a private network, we do private networks. I think for 5G specifically, it's kind of a unique time because we've spent the last four or five decades connecting people, and now we're having to connect everything else. And that means we have to be a lot more efficient in our air interface, using the spectrum more efficiently. And somebody spoke earlier about new spectrum that's coming out. So the CBRS spectrum, which is shared between the military and the private sector, is now being auctioned. And in fact, we provide software solutions to help manage that between the government and other networks, and also the equipment that then runs on these networks. All in all, I guess providing this at a not just cost-effective, but a easy to install, easy to maintain solutions, so that it can grow and change and migrate as the needs change, as the use cases change, from today being human-centric to tomorrow being computer or IoT-centric, to some of the virtual reality and virtual augmentation type of applications that are necessary to help drive remote drones or remote things that require really low latency and really reliable services. Are all things that Commscope helps with.
Morgan, glad to see that Commscope's really in the thick of things. Randall, how about over at Verizon? You all are right smack in the middle of 5G. We're hearing all about it. Tell us about what's happening in regards to 5G with the Department of Defense, et cetera.
Yeah, Luke, I got to tell you, I don't know what else there is to say, Mr. K and Lieutenant Colonel Newell, and I know we're working with Mr. Costello as well in connecting all of these devices and enabling their mission. I mean, that is our complete job, is we look at delivering for the United States Department of Defense so they can complete their mission. You know, we have a little bit different strategy than our competition when it comes to 5G. You know, when we say 5G, we mean 5G. We're going to deliver upon it on an ultra wideband perspective that is going to deliver those ultra low latencies, as Morgan was just speaking about, and the extremely high available bandwidth. And that's going to enable all of the things that Lieutenant Colonel Newell was talking about, and Mr. K, as well as the sensors that Mr. Costello is referring to. So that's our focus. We're going to continue to put our money there, invest there, in a whole ecosystem, whether it's from the network to the applications to all of the hardware providers around it as well.
Well, we're glad to see that the major carriers are putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak, and investing significant amounts of money into building out this backbone so that we can enable all these very important missions that we're describing here. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.